in verse 27 to Jerusalem. And as he was walking in the temple, the chief priests, the scribes, and the elders come to him. So here you have again the ones who are in charge of the temple services, the chief priests, the scribes, who would be experts in the law, writing the law, knowing the law, and the elders. Those would be religious leaders of the Jews, highly respected men, perhaps some of them members of the Sanhedrin Council. That Sanhedrin was made up of chief priests and elders and doctors of the law. And so these would be more than likely members of the Sanhedrin. And they come to him and they said, by what authority are you doing these things? And the things they're talking about probably get back to the day before when he had cleansed the temple and taught some things maybe that they didn't like to hear either. But they ask him, by what authority are you doing these things? And who gave you the authority to do these things? Who gave you this authority to do these things? So basically, from their standpoint, this is a legitimate question. Here he has come in, he's cleansed the temple, given them instructions about what to do and what not to do in the temple. And here are the people who are supposed to be in charge of the temple, so they want to know, well, who said you could do this? What right do you have to do this? That's the question that they're asking. Jesus responds, as he does so often, with a question of his own. He says, I will ask you one question, then you answer me, and I will tell you by what authority I do these things. He said, the baptism of John, was it from heaven or from men? Answer me. Jesus is talking to men here who he knows don't really respect the authority of heaven. And that's really the issue. Jesus did what he did by the authority of heaven. They should have known that. He'd been working miracles and proving himself to be the Son of God for years at this point, yet they had not accepted that. They didn't accept his authority because they didn't recognize the authority of heaven itself. Jesus is asking them a question about John. What about that baptism of John? Was it from heaven? Was it authorized by heaven? Or was that just something men made up? They reason among themselves, saying, if we say from heaven, he will say, why then did you not believe him? But if we say from men, they feared the people, for all counted John to have been a prophet indeed. You see the way they think about Jesus' question. They don't think of it from the standpoint of what's right or what's true. They think of it from a political standpoint. How can we answer this question the most cleverly? How can we answer it in such a way as to make ourselves look good and him look bad? And they realized there's no really good way for them to answer this question. They had asked him a question that they thought, well, there's no really good way for him to answer this. If he says he did this by the authority of God, we'll say, well, he's blaspheming. If he said, well, I just did this on my own authority, they would say, oh, well, you're just a man, you can't do that, you see. So they thought they had asked him this impossible question, but he turns around and asks them a question that puts them in a corner because they don't love the truth. They're not interested in the truth. They're not interested in authority. They don't want to say whether John's baptism came from heaven or from men, although they really know. They know also that all the people believed John was a prophet. Droves of folks went out from Jerusalem to be baptized by John in the wilderness. John was also a prophet of God. But these leaders hadn't accepted that either. So they tell Jesus in verse 33, we don't know. And Jesus answered and said to them, neither will I tell you by what authority I do these things. It's a great answer by our Lord. We see his wisdom, his power in dealing with these people. Sometimes false religious leaders, in their arrogance and pride, just think they know more than God, frankly. And Jesus, in interacting with these men during these last few days of his earthly life before his crucifixion, he really demonstrates the wisdom of God over what is truly the foolishness of men in thinking about spiritual matters. We're amazed